Hey everybody, welcome to, actually we're going to change the name today since you got two boring fixed income guys here. Like you got a real bond trader who knows everything about it, then you've got the guy that pretends he knows how to manage money and fixed income. So we're going to change it to the macro moment and not the macro micro moment. And my co-host today is Byron Anderson, head of fixed income for Laffer Tangler Investments. Nancy is MIA, but if anybody's been watching TV this week, Nancy's been on there she is. She's taking a siesta. She was on Mornings with Maria first thing this morning, co-hosting with the Jamie Dimon segment, which was actually, if you didn't watch it, you should go back and watch it. Jamie had some great comments. Maria did a fantastic job interviewing Jamie, and then my partner Nancy was impeccably dressed in orange today, and she sat there at the whole segment and talked about the economy and tariffs, which is, I think Byron and I are loaded for bear today.
It is an interesting development in bond markets lately. So yeah.
And I didn't realize my dog decided to show up on the show today.
Nice.
Say hi to everybody. Say hi to Romulus Rex, destroyer of socks. Byron and I were just talking. We're going to talk a little bit about bonds, and I think I asked Byron how much interest rates, the 10-year Treasury, had moved in basis points just in the last 3 days. If you guys think it's just stocks that are whipsawing around in very short order, Byron's going to talk to you a little bit about bonds and bond market and what's been going on there.
Yeah, it has been pure chaos the past 3 days in bond markets. It started with rumors that foreign buyers were dumping treasuries. That's kind of that little peak. We went down, and all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh, China's selling treasuries." We didn't see that opposite reaction on Arthur. My boss Arthur is the currency guy, but we didn't see the currency spike or the currency dump in dollars. What actually started happening was there's this thing called a basis trade, and the basis trade is maybe one of the dumbest things that the Fed allows to happen. Hedge funds go into interest rate swaps and then buy treasuries, and they try and take minimal basis points, 1 to 2, 3, 5 basis points, whatever that number is. And then they lever this trade up 100 times and try and maximize their returns off of this. In normal, calm, basic markets, doesn't really influence anything. The problem is we saw this in COVID, that when that unravels, it causes absolute chaos for banks. They have to sell treasuries and come back into swaps and even everything out. That's why that big move happened in bond markets and why everything was so chaotic. There was a good note out from Barclays today, and they were talking about that all the hedge funds met margin calls. Liquidity was good. There was really no chaos. So all of that happened because the Fed didn't do its job, which is risk manager. I've been barking about this for years, that the Fed never does risk management. They think their job is to fund the casino and keep funding the casino. So it's always so.
But but you had an interesting comment this morning. It's not just the 10-year that's been moving. You talked to me a little bit this morning about what the difference between municipal bonds prices and where they've been going, and then just basically, the investment grade high yield spread.
Yep.
What are you seeing actually happen during this period that's, say, a little bit more unique than, say, prior times?
Yeah, it's interesting because you would normally think that municipal bonds would be a place of safety, but there's a key to municipal bonds. There's a thing called the MMD scale. Everybody bids off of the municipal market data scale. It tells you what a AAA should be trading at. It tells you what a AA should be trading at. It's usually you get 1 to 2 basis points change on an MMD scale. You don't get what in the last week I looked at it. So from 4.3 in 6 days, we saw a 70 basis point move in the MMD scale. We're talking generational changes. Like this is what happened in 2008. that you just saw spreads just blow out on municipals, which are usually a safety play.
So these are like
Um,
multi standard deviation moves.
oh yeah, no, I mean, I pick a standard deviation you want to put it. It's probably not that.
Okay.
um, but today was kind of the head. Like it all came to a head in municipal markets today, where the long end munis, they had new issues going off at 5.25 out 30 years, and they were trading at a discount. So there was utter chaos in municipal markets today. There were no bids coming in on a lot of stuff. Um, it was not an interesting. I've been up since 3 a.m. this morning, and I I'm emotionally exhausted. Now I have to talk about it too. So this is my therapy, right? Arthur is my psychiatrist today. So, but you don't expect those type of moves in a high grade market. The interesting part is corporate spreads haven't blown out that much. Like we don't see these massive moves. You've seen bid ask spread on corporates widen out, but you haven't seen just utter chaos yet. And the liquidity's been good. This chart is going to be the high yield average. We have seen this move up. We're almost to 22 highs. With today's, who knows? This is kind of one that resets the next day, but we are getting to those 22 highs. The interesting part is the high yield market has moved to private credit. And this is where we don't know really what's happening in high yield. Yes, there's pressure in high yield and spreads are widening out. Defaults will start going up in high yield. Credit crunches, if they can't issue, those are the companies that need liquidity through issuance. Private credit's a different thing because those are single issues that are going into credit funds and they don't have to mark to market. So we don't know really what's going on. So those are in, pensions and everything else that went into private credit in this big rush in the last year. So private credit's really going to start looking for where the cracks happened. If all of these Trump policies really did cause like long lasting issues in the bond market.
By and large, you're seeing deals.
Gosh, everything was paused. Most investment grade deals got paused the last few days. There was a Kentucky deal that was supposed to go off yesterday, and it just kept getting priced down and priced down and priced down, where it's just too expensive for them to put these out. So they'll just pull them. So there's been a ton of municipal issuers that have just pulled any issuance and are putting it on pause. Corporate issuers just aren't coming to market because they know they don't want to pay 7% for investment grade stuff right now.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is it was pretty orderly. That's the interesting part to me, up until today in muni markets, but corporate markets have been pretty well behaved. And I think that really goes to, as much as I hate the Fed, everything they do, I think, is just a colossal cluster. 23% of GDP from their being put into markets as liquidity from their balance sheet, I think kind of buffered this stuff. I mean, it added a lot of liquidity to equity markets, to credit markets. It kept spreads low. There was a lot of money in the system. So we didn't see a massive liquidity crunch like we possibly could have in 08 or something like that from this much catastrophe.
I think we're going to introduce, I want to introduce something. And then when we come back, Byron,
Sure.
I think we want to talk about like the economy, tariffs, where things might be going. But an interesting little thing I think Oxford put out today, that did the FOMC minutes from the last meeting, and how much uncertainty the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee,
Right.
they're the ones that set the Fed funds rate, really. But how much talk and conversation was around the economy going forward, because things have looked great up and through March, the March data so far, but they're all worried about the impact of tariffs. This is where Nancy and I think the other week, were making fun of the fact that Jay Powell uttered the word transitory again, which when they're talking about the impact of tariffs and prices and inflation, and he said transitory, and you could hear the audience just going, all the reporters just groan like,
Right.
I can't believe you didn't learn your lesson, but clearly he
And
hasn't.
and the Bloomberg reporter who coaxed that out of him, that guy should get a medal for coaxing it
Yeah,
out of him to get him to say transitory. It
yeah,
was so
he won the office pool.
chef's kiss there.
I think we're going to take a break and come back in a second and talk about tariffs and the economy for a second, and maybe what that means for stocks and bonds and what people should be looking for. Thank you very much.
There's
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I'm Arthur Laffer, and this is my partner, Byron Anderson. And if you saw the animation, they're launching me around the planet again. We're going to talk tariffs, which is a global thing, obviously. So that was hence the Arthur being launched into space. I think Nancy actually designed that animation. She wants to launch me into space half the time.
I want an
Uh,
animation.
we need to get one for you, Byron. Um, China responded with Trump's tariff threat, and they said they were going to impose 84% tariffs on U.S. goods coming to China. And Trump, not to be outdone, I think originally it was 100. What was that? I wrote down it was 104%, but then he turned around and said, like, we're going to the moon with tariffs. Now it's 125% tariff effective immediately. These are
What
big numbers.
and it just seems like anything that comes out, it's here you go, one more. Oh, you want to keep playing? Here you go. We'll keep just throwing it up. Doesn't matter where it goes. What what does that do to China? Like obviously there's direct implications for exports and imports, but what's the ultimate? I mean, they feel like they're almost in a depression as they sit.
At some point, Byron, I think that we start worrying about regime change. I mean, China's economy is not in good shape to begin with. They have high unemployment. They have not been able to really get out from under this huge debt overhang of their economy, where they basically are just the consumers way over leveraged and can't get out from underneath it. They haven't addressed it. They just keep kind of pushing symptoms, like they're trying to push, like, homemade cures, but they're actually not really getting the issue with their economy, which is this debt overhang. You can lower interest rates to 0% if the person's over leveraged. What do? They can't borrow even at 0%. No one's going to lend to them because they're underwater. So huge exposure to real estate, and they're trying to get their way, trade their way out of it, and they're going to get shellacked by us. And it's not just us. Europe's doing similar punitive things to try to get them to play fair. So everybody thinks that China's not playing fair. It's not just us. We're just the ones taking them to task the most.
And
So
so with Europe, do you think that that similar thing, because Europe's been pretty stagnated economically. We've helped their stock markets, but is any of this like, does this rejuvenate them by getting rid of their tariffs and getting rid of regulation over there?
well, I think that ultimately that's the plan. I think that everybody says Trump's kind of crazy, he's unhinged. Look, I don't know how you can negotiate if you telegraph what you're willing to do and not willing to do in a negotiation, whether it's tariffs or anything, right? So that doesn't apply just this situation. I remember there was a Reagan moment where he was caught on a hot mic about the missiles were firing towards Russia as we speak, and I was just kidding, I was kidding. But the thing is, the Russians thought he was this crazy cowboy and that they couldn't rely upon normal behavior. They thought he was off his rocker, and so
Yeah.
they had to try to pacify this guy. And I think that's one of the reasons he won so much. Uh, I think that's what you're seeing here too. I mean, Trump is willing to pound China into the ground on trade, and that's the one thing that's been trying to prop up their economy. Now, what do they do? What's Xi going to do? Start a war? I mean, like, you think things are bad now? Go ahead, try to invade Taiwan. See what happens. It's not going to be good.
What do you
Um,
what do you think the implications are for the yuan and the renminbi? Are they going to do a devaluation over there?
it might happen automatically. It might happen whether they want it to or not.
Right.
I mean, all you have to do is, you start cutting off their access to trade. They start playing hardball with us, right? Let's say they do something crazy like actually seize U.S. Corporate assets that are located in China. Go ahead, seize one plant. Watch what happens to the yuan. Foreign direct investment has already collapsed. It will go backwards. The people will try to move their assets out of China so fast their head will spin. They'll have to put capital controls on to stop assets from leaving. So they're stuck. I mean, they've got to find a way to. I mean, I don't know how they save face, but they've got to find some way to pacify the president with regard to these tariffs and bring them back down. Otherwise, I mean, I think they're in real trouble. In fact, they are in real trouble. The question is, how bad does it get?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that Europe just came back. They came back with these basically very benign increases on tariffs. Most of it was from earlier with the steel. The thing that Europe has a very difficult time, the EU in particular has difficult time in trade negotiations, is you're not dealing with one person. There's not a president or of the EU per se. So they have to negotiate. They have to go back and get all the countries together, their trade representatives, to try to come to an agreement as to how and what they're willing to do with the U.S. or any trade partners, not just us. So it takes a lot longer for them to figure out things out. It's like herding cats, much harder.
Does everybody have to agree?
Yep. I mean, enough people have to agree. It's a very political animal. It's very bureaucratic. Whereas, if you're dealing with Japan, you got the prime minister and that's it. If you're dealing with Argentina, it's just Malay. If you're in Mexico, you get the president. It was Trudeau, now it's Carney up in Canada. So much easier. They're responsible for kind of getting everybody in line, but Europe, much different environment, very different process. They cannot act fast, which is big detriment for them when it comes to negotiations. They have to kind of lowest common denominator type of scenario always. So it's not good for them.
And do you think with the social turmoil that's happening in Europe already, like it's going to make them come to the table even faster? Because an economic turmoil on top of all of that.
Yeah, because their economies aren't doing well to begin with. I mean, you got
Yeah.
Germany just issued this massive amount of debt or authorized massive debt, and Chancellor Merz he's basically solidifying his kind of coalition government. Opinion polls are not going his way. Germans are not happy with the outcome of the election and the fact that he's now building a coalition government with the SPD, who just got kicked out. So here you threw the bums out, and you elected this other guy, but he doesn't have the votes. And what does he do? He goes and allies and cooperates with the people he just threw out. That's not good. Turn around to France. We talked about the previous episode that we had on MMM macro moment. where Le Pen now has been convicted of embezzlement, and she's banned from running for office for the next 5 years, and she can't even run on during the appeal process, which is supposed to take a year. I mean, this you just can't make this stuff up.
Is there a whiff of conspiracy there?
Okay, yeah, everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I think the memes. I mean, I think the meme factories have got to be running overtime. The thing is, which one? There's so many. It's like a huge opportunity to make memes about stuff everywhere you go. I mean, Trump's feeding the fire pretty heavily here domestically, but it's crazy outside the U.S. too.
Yeah.
But look at the countries that have already come to the U.S. I mean, Trump's commented about how many countries. But you got Vietnam came back very quickly and said, "Hey, we'll do a zero tariff. We'll do a free trade zone with the U.S." Taiwan, same thing. We'll do a free trade zone with this Millet down in Argentina. He doesn't have a lot of trade, but he's looking for deals. India said they want to play ball. Canada and Mexico already have basically a free trade agreement with us, but obviously we're going to try to renegotiate some parts of that. I'm not quite sure, but it looks like everything's open for negotiation. I know Japan has already come back and said they want to talk tariff reform. And Trump came back, which is why the market rallied and said, "Hey, 90-day moratorium. It's just the 10% on anybody who is trying to negotiate with us. We'll give you some time to figure this out." These things, by the way, typically, Byron, I mean, trade agreements can take a decade to work out. I mean, they're crazy.
Yeah.
I actually saw Kudlow. Nancy, I think, did Kudlow this last weekend on the Kudlow's radio show, but he was on there doing a clip and talking about how these trade negotiations, like the granularity of trade, and how crazy it gets. I think the Canadian one trade agreement is like 1,400 pages of just itemized things and different scales of how much the weights, and it's insane.
Do you think it's plausible that we go to a zero on a lot of these countries, like these major countries? No.
No, I think Trump is I think his kind of negotiating baseline is he wants to have tariffs, but at a very low level. So if you're, and I was always taught that if you're going to impose a tax, you want to have it the lowest rate on the broadest base. So you collect the money you need to run the government, but you do it with the least amount of pain and suffering, like any tax. A tariff is a tax. So if you're going to do an income tax, you really want a flat tax. You want a low rate flat tax on everything, so you distort behavior the least. So I think he's going to say, "Hey, look, we'll do 10%, you do 10%. Everybody gets their money. We don't go crazy. No special deals."
Right.
That's where I think we're going.
And then the deregulation portion of it is the harder part for all of these countries to actually try and get rid of the regulation barriers that are blocking everything out. Is that the stuff that takes the longer period of time to actually get through?
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like, in the US, this Doge stuff, you've got states looking at doing Doge stuff. I mean, there's no question there's massive amounts of waste, fraud, and abuse in all government systems. They don't operate like corporations where you get punished if you make bad decisions. I mean, like, Boeing, you outsource too much. I don't want to pick on Boeing, but if you outsource too much and you don't focus on your core business and you outsource to the cheapest third party, and then you have problems with your planes, your stock price is going to get punished. You as a CEO might lose your job. You might get sued. You might get thrown in jail. So there are consequences on the private side that those are less apparent on the public side. They get away with waste, fraud, and abuse for a lot longer without being held accountable. Usually you just get thrown out of office, and that'd be about it.
And you'd think that people would respond to the China tariffs in a different way than they do everybody else. Because China is an adversarial country to us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they steal our technology. They hack our companies all the time. So it seems like that would be a different kind of expectation, which is what you saw in the market today too, right? Like kind of that thought.
But at the same time, we have a lot of assets located in China. I mean, Trump's correct. I mean, Europe is correct. We outsourced a lot of our manufacturing of pharmaceuticals to India, not just China, but India. Ireland's biggest trade surplus with us is, I think, pharmaceuticals or medical devices and stuff. So we shipped, for low cost, we shipped to these countries like Vietnam, and to get lower price manufacturing. But there's a price, the price is your manufacturing isn't over there. And it's really hard to pick up a plant and move it. I mean, Back in the 80s, the joke was when Japan was, ascendant and the yen was raging, super strong, that the imperial palace, if you sold it, you could buy the state of California. Just the Japanese imperial palace was worth the state of California, which is ludicrous, but on any level, right?
Right.
But but the point of the thing is, you own California. Now what? Come and take it. You can't pick it up and move it. So if you want to occupy it, you got to move to California. And guess what? You move here, you have kids. They're Americans. They live in California now. We now got you, right? So, but they have the factories in China, and if they're in China, and that's where you do your manufacturing, then China ultimately has control of those factories.
So ultimately, we have Bill Clinton to thank for all of this.
Oh, it's been going on a long time. I wouldn't blame just Bill Clinton, but it's, well, growth. So what we do is we have, what causes this to happen is we went from a manufacturing base to a service base. So 70% of the U.S. economy is services. It's not manufacturing.
Yep.
And there are some things that we shouldn't manufacture because someone can do it cheaper and better than we can. But there are some things we should do. And the president's correct. There are some things that are just pure strategic. They have nothing to do with costs, in essence, where we need to make, if shipbuilding is important and it's a strategic industry that we need to for national defense, we better make sure we have enough shipbuilding capacity.
Same reason EU has Airbus, all tucked away and protected.
And it's fragmented too. So this gets back to the European political system. Like Italy might make the tail, and Switzerland makes, the engines, and then France makes the fuselage, and Germany makes all the hydraulics and stuff. So in order to get an Airbus manufactured, it's got to be, you got to ship it all over Europe. It's crazy. Very inefficient.
Yeah.
So
The takeaway that I keep getting is the underlying thought process on it is correct. It's just how it's getting implemented is the hard part, and that's what's causing chaos in every single market. And people, I think people just underestimated the amount. I did. I
but
didn't
it's
think it would be the extreme.
but I was saying, it's funny because you and I were talking about the number of basis points the 10-year treasuries moved just in the last 3 days. I mean, these are
Right.
huge numbers. You're talking about multiple standard deviations of normal on, what is it, the MMD,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you look at stock prices moving all over the place because they're getting whipped by headlines. Some of it legitimately serious stuff that you need to pay attention to. But I think what kind of struck me is, keep calm and carry on. Be careful looking at headlines, because if things aren't finalized yet, you don't know which way they're going to go. Discipline trumps, every time. Process and discipline trump trying to market time the market. I don't. It's hard. Most people are not successful at it, even if professionals aren't successful at it. But it's important to keep calm. If you need to make a decision, make a decision. If you don't, find good money managers, stick with them. Dollar cost average, all the things we're taught in our business.
Yep.
I mean, they're true and they stay true.
I mean, you don't have a crystal ball, Arthur?
I wish.
Well, and that's like talking about the bond portfolios that we've been doing. We moved to safety months ago, even before Trump got in, and it was because we were watching the extremes of the market. Credit spreads at all-time lows, not a good thing. That's telling you that things are at extremes. Markets want to revert to means, in bond markets especially. They don't stay at massive extremes for long. So that's always our thinking on the bond side is, you get to an extreme, it's gonna come off. Just, you don't know what the catalyst is. You don't know what's going to send it there. Trump, in this case, did it to all of them. So
I think we're going to talk about one more thing, and then we're going to wrap it up, because I think we're coming to time now. It's been about half an hour. So this morning, our partner Nancy Tangler was co-hosting Mornings with Maria, as I said earlier. Maria Bartiromo had Jamie Dimon on. It was an interesting segment. He's always great. Listen to, and it was actually quite a long segment. And the interesting thing, one of the things they talked about was recession, the deadly R word, or even stagflation. And I would say that, I think Jamie Dimon said that he expects a mild recession. I would say that's definitely on the table. Key point here is markets tend to look 6 to 12 months out under normal circumstances. So I don't see it being a foregone conclusion that we have two negative quarters, but I think second quarter is going to be rough the way things look right now. But I don't see this shift in tariffs. If we get this under control and we make some really good tariff deals, that'll be really beneficial long run. And if we get spending at the federal level down, and we can grow our way out of this, get people off the government dole, get them back into the private sector. Plus, there's the whole AI stuff that we've talked about nonstop. That's going to be a huge efficiency booster. I think it's just a blip. I don't know what you think about it.
Are we going to get Arthur Laffer to say transitory on inflation?
Yeah, I mean, but I think I would have to, unlike Jay Powell, I think I would define what transitory means rather than saying transitory. And you're talking about earthquakes or plate tectonics.
Right.
Yeah. I'm still pretty optimistic. I think that this is just going to be a shuffling. You need to be smart as to what's happening here and where the opportunities really lie. I think some of the opportunities are still the same opportunities we had before, but I think you're going to see some brand new ones pop up when you have this kind of shift in major fiscal and major economic policy, trade policy, and you're getting it under the what we call incomes policies as well, which is the stuff that RFK is doing, the EPA under Lee Zeldin. You've got not so much Treasury. But you've got education, agriculture. I mean, these are big shifts. We got pipelines being built. You see oil prices coming down. That's really good for the consumer and gas prices. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really fun, optimistic things that are coming down the pipe, and then we just got to get this trade stuff cleared up. How's that?
Like I said yesterday, when the bond guy is optimistic about bond markets, you got a problem. So
that's right. Run faster.
Yeah, right. Holy cow! So, and there's opportunity in bond markets for sure. You're gonna have to gut out some volatility, but municipals are looking interesting. I'm not telling anybody to buy anything, but we're definitely looking at a lot of that stuff. There's definitely value popping up everywhere.
And plus, spreads are finally widening out. They've been so historically tight for so long. You're right. There hasn't been a lot of real good opportunities to make money other than just clip coupons.
Yeah. And structurally, like on the bond side, I still think that we are slanted towards higher interest rates. So there's going to be opportunities here. It's not going to go down to, we're not going down to 3% on treasuries. So
great. Those days are over.
Yep. A real bond market again. Hot dang.
Bonds are finally back in fashion.
I know. People want to talk to the bond guy. Let's go.
We always want to talk to you, Byron.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Byron, for co-hosting this week's segment. We're getting Nancy back next week, and we'll always have Byron on because Byron's a great person and fantastic bond guy. And there's not a lot of them around anymore. Most of them have gone the way of the dinosaur, but we've got our own dinosaur here, Byron Anderson.
I appreciate it. Next time I'm coming with some hair. I'm going to start putting on a wig.
I can't give you much, man.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.